An incredible billionaire challenge. Waitress reveals hidden stock secrets that transformed lives. Sarah poured another cup of coffee, the steam rising and swirling around her like the dreams she wished would take flight. At 32, her hands trembled not just from the long hours spent waiting tables in the worn diner, but from the weight of every unpaid bill piled high in the mailbox at home. The clinking of silverware and muted conversations of the regulars filled her ears, but her mind was a chaos of worry, conjuring images of her two young children's future. A future that felt increasingly bleak after her husband had vanished, leaving her to navigate these turbulent waters alone. As she served a group of farmers at the booth by the window, Sarah's heart ached with longing. "What I'd do for a chance to change all this," she whispered to herself, the words barely there amidst the bustle. Inside, ambition carved paths of determination that battled fiercely with crushing despair. How could one waitress, a single mother, with no college degree, aspire to something greater? The thought made her stomach knot. The odds felt insurmountable. On that particular morning, the diner door swung open, ushering in a brisk breeze laden with possibility. In strode Jake, the billionaire, with an effortless charm that shone brighter than the fluorescent lights above. Awed murmurs rippled through the diner as his charismatic presence filled the room. Sarah's heart skipped, not out of attraction, but from the jolt of reality crashing down. What could a man like him want in a place like this, she thought. While he awaited his order, Sarah overheard him chuckling at the tales of small-town gossip from the booth. Courage surged within her. Could this man, this mysterious force of change, spark a similar fire in her life? Before she knew it, she was unwittingly engaged in the conversation, revealing her hopes of investing in the stock market, her last shot at breaking free from the cycle of poverty. As Jake listened, his smirk turned into intrigue. Why not take a challenge, he proposed, surprising Sarah with the audacity of his words. If you can dig up the secrets behind a particular stock, I'll help turn your life around, make it your business. She felt her breath hitch in her throat, a flicker of hope igniting. But the specter of doubt clouded her excitement. What if she failed? Could a waitress be more than someone serving coffee and plates of pancakes? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from.
Eu estou no meio de uma frase ou pensamento. Mantenha o ritmo e a força vocal sem quebrar a conexão. Haja como se estivesse transmitindo uma verdade fundamental. I found your same society even when it all seemed chaos.
She leaned back in her chair, her heart pounding with conflicting emotions. Fear and excitement danced in her chest, each vying for dominance. But one thought broke through. She could let this define her. Taking a deep breath, Sarah skimmed the email once more, her fingers twitching restlessly. Major risks ahead. This phrase echoed ominously in her mind. She couldn't afford to roll back now. The very nature of trading was riding waves of risk. She had already committed to learning and pushing through. That realization ignited a flicker of fierce determination. Setting her jaw, she refocused on the data before her, a palette of numbers that had the power to alter her life. First, she needed to dissect that email deeper. Where were the risks?
How could she turn this information into an advantage? Navigating through financial reports and news articles, Sarah began piecing together the dots. It was about more than mere statistics. It was about understanding the broader implications, the stories interwoven with figures and trends. Underneath her anxiety, something monumental was beginning to unfold. This was no longer just about stocks. It was about strategic thinking and embracing the chaos surrounding her ambitions. Late into the night, she toggled between spreadsheets and analysis tools, her mind unlocking hidden competencies that she had never recognized before. In this urgency, she saw clarity. With each chapter of information processed, Sarah was being sculpted into a strategist, not just a waitress with dreams. This was a pivotal moment. She could feel it. Pushing through fatigue, she transformed data into narratives, constructing a framework that made the complex world of finance seem almost poetic. Every potential pitfall was reframed as a stepping stone, and every risk morphed into an opportunity. Maybe the stakes were high, but with them, the rewards shimmered more brightly. As dawn began to break, Sarah stepped back, her eyes widened at her findings. There was indeed a thread unspooling, a persistent pattern in the reported pitfalls that hinted at an opportunity. This was more than mere speculation. It felt close to theory, even strategy. She wrote down her thoughts, crafting notes that articulated not only what she had found, but how it tied in to her earlier research. Suddenly, a thought intruded, as insistent as her growing resolve. What if she documented this journey? Wouldn't her experiences resonate with others who felt trapped, stifled by the same limitations? The idea blossomed, pulling her in another direction, a potential blog sharing her insights, her learnings punctuated with personal reflections. The investor market was swamped with complexities, but who better to present them than someone who emerged from the periphery and dared to dive into the unknown? Energized at the prospect of crafting her narrative, she opened a new document labeled Lessons from the Margin. Yet the hollow pit of doubt crept back in. Clarity surfaced, revealing the want and need to communicar her findings, not just as data, but as a narrative with the capacity to resonate with others. She envisioned her blog, the embodiment of her voice. How could she share this evolution if she couldn't even communicate her insights with her own teammate? The day dragged on, punctuated by crescendos of anxiety and silent moments of resolve. When the time finally arrived for her meeting with Jake, she felt her spirit bolt like a rubber band snapping back from tension. She couldn't retreat. Doing so would mean losing the very ground she'd fought to stand on. Jake entered the cafe, their unofficial meeting spot, and Sarah felt a rush of mixed emotions. His eyes brightened at the sight of her. "Ready to dive in?" he asked, his demeanor warm but professional. "Absolutely," she responded, with an edge of determination she could hear in her own voice. As they settled in, she detailed her findings, weaving them into the broader context of her analysis. Each point was met with varying degrees of interest etched across Jake's face, encouraging her to continue. But as the conversation deepened, she noted a shift in his expression. The excitement he initially shared began to intermingle with caution, his brow knitted with concern. "Sarah, the insights are impressive, but we need to tread carefully. These market shifts could provoke unintended reactions." His words struck her like a bolt of lightning. It was a reminder that each risk had to be meticulously assessed. That realization invigorated her further. She understood her analysis could not simply stand on its own. It required an actionable strategy that balanced risk with reward. It was a test of her analytical ability, and she was determined to confront it head-on. Yet, just as the conversation seemed to solidify her newfound confidence, a realization washed over her. What if she could leverage her blog alongside their strategies? What if sharing her insights could not only validate her, but encourage a greater understanding of the market intricacies for others? As she posed this idea to Jake, a thoughtful silence enveloped their table. Jake stared at her, something brewing beneath the surface of quieter contemplation. That could be an intriguing angle, but are you prepared for the backlash that might come? Going public, Sarah. The weight of his words crashed over her like a wave, and she felt the moment stretch endlessly. Could she really embrace this dual path, exposing herself as a novice in a seasoned world? Sarah swallowed hard, feeling the swell of doubt rise again inside her. But for every flicker of hesitation, her drive emanated stronger. Jake leaned in, breaking the silence. But maybe that's the transformative part. We can turn those vulnerabilities into a unique perspective. Just be ready. The market can be a ruthless audience.
At that moment, she sensed the stakes were higher than ever. Her journey towards defining her voice, not just as an analyst, but as a storyteller, was about the leap into the unknown, into the public realm. A tight knot of excitement and fear hardened in her chest. Yet, as she considered her next steps, an even deeper realization hung in the air. The global market wasn't just a space of numbers, it was a realm of competing narratives, and she was ready to stake her claim. Before they parted ways, Jake's final words lingered in her mind, a precarious invitation to embrace the challenges ahead. The time has come to face this risk, Sarah. Will you take it? As she walked home, her mind buzzed with possibilities and dilemmas. In that moment of reflection, she realized it wasn't only about market strategies anymore. It was about defining who she wanted to become in a world that often overlooked voices like hers. With her fingers itching to type, she pondered the next entry for her blog. How could she encapsulate her journey so far, and what lessons would she include? The weight of vulnerability pressed on her as she ventured one step closer to transformation. Would she have the courage to unravel her past and protect her future? Or would fear keep her tethered to the shadows? And as she opened her laptop that night, a single thought crystallized in her mind, infusing her with a sense of both dread and exhilaration. It was time to unveil the lessons learned, not just for herself, but for those waiting in silence for someone brave enough to speak up. The next morning dawned gray and cloudy, mirroring Sarah's tumultuous thoughts as she sipped her coffee. The heaviness in the air felt almost tangible, yet it stirred her resolve. She had barely slept, her mind racing through the implications of her potential blog post and the risk that weighed against it. Turning her insights into a narrative veered dangerously close to exposing her insecurities. Could she navigate this new terrain without losing herself? As the barista called out a name, she glanced up, noticing the small cafe buzzing with energy around her. It was a stark reminder of the world outside her bubble, a world filled with people chasing dreams, each carrying their own burdens. What was it that allowed them to share their stories so freely? Perhaps she could learn from them and shift her perspective, viewing herself not just as an outsider yearning for belonging, but as a voice deserving of being heard. With her fingers itching to type, she pondered the next entry for her blog. How could she encapsulate her journey so far, and what lessons would she include? The weight of vulnerability pressed on her as she ventured one step closer to transformation. Would she have the courage to unravel her past and protect her future, or would fear keep her tethered to the shadows? And as she opened her laptop that night, a single thought crystallized in her mind, infusing her with a sense of both dread and exhilaration. It was time to unveil the lessons learned, not just for herself, but for those waiting in silence for someone brave enough to speak up.
Who was she writing for? The answer crystallized. This was about more than just sharing strategies. It was about revealing her journey in a way that could resonate with those feeling unseen. Sharing vulnerabilities could cultivate connection, and that realization lit a spark in her. Taking a breath, she pressed forward, letting her emotions guide her narrative. The words flowed as she recounted her personal evolution. From her days in the bustling restaurant, juggling orders, to now deciphering market nuances that could alter financial trajectories. With each line, she discovered the narrative arc that would not only captivate her readers, but also remind her of the experiences that shaped her. Later that day, she decided to share her draft with Jake. She knew feedback from him would challenge her to refine her ideas further. As she hit send, a twinge of anxiety crept in. What if he thought it was too naive, too ambitious? But she quickly extinguished that fear. This was part of her growth. Taking risks and welcoming scrutiny meant stepping into her potential. When Jake replied with an invitation to meet again, relief washed over her. She felt ready, poised to confront whatever hesitations he might voice. Would he see her transformation? Would he recognize her resilience? As she prepared for the meeting, she felt both anxious and empowered, desperate to engage in a conversation that could redefine not just their professional relationship, but also her identity moving forward. On the walk to the cafe, Sarah noticed swift changes in her surroundings. The city bustled with life, mirroring the rising tide within her. At that moment, she contemplated the trajectory toward which she was steering her life. The potential for growth often lay just beyond the walls of comfort, and she was finally ready to break through. As Jake approached, his expression held a mixture of curiosity and concern. "I read your draft," he began, "and I have to say, you're onto something compelling. But there are some parts we should refine. You're sharing your voice, but are you prepared for the potential critics?" His question hung in the air, thick with layers of possibility. "Critics exist in everything, right?" she replied, surprising herself with her confidence. "But if I'm going to take this risk, I need to do it my way." Jake nodded thoughtfully, but a shadow of doubt flickered across his features. "Just remember, exposure can elevate your voice or drown it out. It's a gamble." As they talked through his suggestions, a realization began to settle in.
This wasn't only about marketing dynamics or personal branding. It was a transformational crossroads. The moment required not just courage, but commitment. Was she ready to embrace whatever came next, knowing that this journey could fortify or potentially expose her vulnerabilities? By the time their conversation reached its conclusion, she realized the leap extended beyond just her professional persona.
It was a leap into becoming more than a mere observer, but an active participant in a narrative she could mold. This was about more than just sharing. It was about charting an authentic course that could instruct as much as it inspired. Yet, as she settled back into her routine, self-doubt crept in gradually, lingering at the edge of her thoughts. That evening, she received a message from Jake asking to meet again. While under normal circumstances this would have excited her, the worry of having overstepped began to loom again. What if he found her recent modifications insincere? The next day they met at a restaurant, and during their conversation it became clear that this meeting was going to be critical. Jake leaned in, eyes bright with interest. "I've been thinking about your post," he said. "The research adds depth, but it also opens doors to criticism. Are you prepared to defend your points?" His words stung. There was a certain gravity to what he was suggesting. This journey would require her to stand firm on her knowledge, to embrace the scrutiny. "The hesitation is natural, but if I truly want to be seen, then I have to embrace this risk too," she replied, surprising herself again with the strength in her tone. Jake nodded appreciatively. "I see the growth in you, but owning your narrative means being comfortable with both accolades and critique." In that moment, a revelation struck her. She was in a tug of war between wanting to be seen and fearing judgment. Was she prepared for the potential backlash that could arise from those who might question her insights? As she left the restaurant, her mind whirled with questions. What if she laid her soul bare, only to have critics tear apart her carefully constructed narrative? Yet an undercurrent of resolve surged through her. She had taken leaps before, hadn't she? Facing the judgments would be tantamount to reaffirming her commitment to her own story. In that delicate balancing act of vulnerability and conviction, Sarah's determination surged forward. Perhaps this was not just about crafting a catchphrase-laden blog to entice readers, but instead the forging of her identity and competence in a realm she sought to master. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard later that night. She needed to uncover the parallel between her path and the data that could validate it, the kind of authenticity that wouldn't just invite criticism, but could also encourage unexpected alliances with those who saw the value in a holistic narrative. The stakes were high, but so was her resolve. She battled lingering uncertainties, immersing herself in final edits, layering her voice with evidence and conviction. And then it struck her, a thought stronger than trepidation. What if this vulnerability led to a breakthrough, transforming not just her voice, but also the way others perceived their own stories? But just as she steeled herself for this next leap, a sudden notification pinged on her laptop, a comment on her initial draft that she had shared with Jake. As her fingers trembled, she hesitated. Could this comentário ser o ponto de virada, a crítica que tanto temia? Podia desafiar sua narrativa ou oferecer a validação que desejava? Combate com mente, ela abriu o comentário, incerta se estava pronta para seu impacto. O momento de verdade a aguardava. A tela acendeu e Sarah's Hart acelerou ao ler o comentário marcado pelo nome de Jake. Interessantes perspectivas, mas eu me pergunto se você está exagerando suas vulnerabilidades. Até que ponto a autenticidade cruza em manipulação? Be careful. Um sharp intaque de ar escapou. As palavras foram como lascas de vidro perçando a otimismo, forçando uma cascata de emoções ao holofote. Como podia ter pensado que estava pronta para este escrutínio? Cada tecla agora parecia mais pesada e seu resolve começou a afraujar. Talvez Jake fosse certo. Estava ela buscando validação extrapada à arriscada linha de exposé. Por um momento, ficou frozen, olhando o piscante cursor em sua tela. But the process demanded more from her than merely encoding knowledge. She had to grapple with a profound notion. If she truly believed in her message, could she embrace the thought that not everyone would resonate with it? This question spiraled in her mind, each iteration deepening her awareness of the risks inherent in personal expression. The outpouring of mixed reviews today could be meaningful, a chance to influence a conversation she deemed vital. Caught in this crucible of self-reflection, Sarah looked at her screen and asked herself, what was the most significant truth she wanted to share? The passion to connect with readers, tempered with a fear of critics, was settling into a renewed sense of clarity. Her mission remained intact. She intended to inspire, but also to stand firm in the authenticity of her experience. With each keystroke, she felt lighter, nudging the fear aside, recognizing it as a natural companion along her journey. Constructing a narrative that carried the weight of her introspection felt invigorating, not merely an act of vulnerability, but a responsibility towards anyone seeking connection in their own trials. And just as she was closing on the draft, a shiver of apprehension raced up her spine. Would this revised piece be enough to silence the critics she so feared? It struck her then. It wasn't about erasing criticism, but embracing it, and owning her narrative fiercely could rally more than doubt. It could spark understanding and solidarity. Satisfied yet anxious, she hit save and took a step back, ready to share a new narrative that stood on the precipice of breakthrough and backlash. Yet, as she prepared to reach out to Jake, a notification caught her eye. A surprise message from a surprising sender. The tension in her chest tightened as the name flashed before her. A prominent industry figure she had always admired. Would their perspective bring affirmation or further challenge her journey? Sarah stared at the notification, her heart racing. The sender was none other than Morgan James, a name synonymous with success and innovation in the publishing industry. Having followed Morgan's career with admiration, Sarah felt a mix of excitement and trepidation. This was the kind of opportunity she had dreamt of, but it came tethered to the very fears she had grappled with just moments ago. Taking a deep breath, she clicked on the message. Hi, Sarah. I came across your recent work. I appreciate your candor, but it raises questions that could help refine your narrative. Would love to chat if you're interested. The compliment lit a small spark of confidence within her.
Yet doubt loomed close behind. Did Morgan genuinely perceive potential in her, or was this just polite acknowledgment meant to soften her vulnerabilities? She hesitated, the weight of Jake's critique echoing in her mind. Was it wise to engage with someone so illustrious? Would it lead to the affirmation she sought, or would it only highlight her inadequacies?
Your narrative is powerful, forte e autoritária. O tom deve ser firme e inabalável. It's the bridge between you and your readers, Morgan urged, her tone encouraging yet firm. Let go of the fear of judgment. Focus on what you want to convey. What's truly at stake from this intersection of your life and your art? As they continued to discuss her work, Sarah's resolve solidified. Each insight shared by Morgan peeled back layers of defense, laying bare the courage needed to push through her insecurities. Sarah realized that her narrative was not solely about her pursuit for recognition, but rather sharing what it means to chase dreams amid the shadows of doubt. Each painful memory could transform into lessons of resilience. After the call concluded, Sarah sat in stunned silence. The weight of vulnerability began to settle within her like a familiar yet unwelcome guest. What had been a lingering fear now morphed into an acceptance that growth required her to expose her soul. In the days that followed, the drive to reshape her narrative thrummed in her veins. Digging deep required honesty, which meant confronting uncomfortable truths. The prospect was daunting, yet she felt an undeniable urgency to rise above the fear that had once held her captive. She immersed herself in her writing, determined to rewrite her story with authenticity at the forefront. Each keystroke felt like a small act of rebellion against the insecurities that had swelled within her. The words flowed freely as she reflected on her past, the failures and triumphs that shaped her perspective and fueled her ambition. But just as the light of inspiration illuminated her path, a shadow of doubt flickered. What if she revealed too much? What if her past received harsh judgment rather than the understanding she desired? Could she handle the potential fallout? With every moment of doubt that crept in, Sarah committed herself to discovering the strength in honesty. The risks were palpable, yet the potential rewards resounded loudly. Yet, as she reached the conclusion of her draft, an inner voice cautioned her. What if the deepest truths she shared became fodder for critics? Would that ultimately lead to empowerment or further rob her of agency? The stakes had transformed into something more intricate. The journey ahead was not merely about narrative, but ownership of her identity and experiences. As she finished her writing session, Sarah leaned back, her breath unsteady but fierce. The challenge was escalating, tipping toward a pivotal moment of reckoning. Would she dare to present her authentic self to the world, recognizing the complexities that came with it? Or would she retreat into the shadows of her insecurities once again? This urgency to balance vulnerability and self-protection was gathering momentum. She found herself standing at the edge of a precipice. The next leap was clear, yet it bore an exquisite fear. An invitation to address her most profound conflicts. Would she take it? An email notification shattered the stillness, pulling her attention abruptly. She froze, mind racing back to the intimidating possibilities that awaited her. What new revelation would this message unveil? Sarah stared at the notification, her heart beating faster as she clicked open the new email. It was from Jake, and the subject line simply read,
Important updates. Her stomach twisted. Was this the moment they had been waiting for, or a setback she wasn't prepared to face? As she opened the email, a sense of urgency washed over her. Jake's words swiftly detailed new developments in the stock market, circumstances arising that would require their immediate attention. This was it, the beginning of an accelerated pace in her journey. But the gravity of Jake's tone hinted at challenges ahead. Sarah, we need to act quickly. The insights you've been analyzing are timely, and together we could leverage them for significant opportunities. Are you ready? The anticipation ignited a fire in her chest. For the first time since embarking on this journey, Sarah felt a confluence of her personal transformation and professional potential. Here was an opportunity to step confidently into a role she had once believed was beyond her reach, a partner in a high-stakes endeavor. Determined, she responded to Jake's email, affirming her readiness to embrace whatever hurdles lay ahead. Embracing her role in this unfolding narrative, she struck a balance between the invigorating challenge of the stock market and the emerging voice she was crafting in her narrative. The following days were an exhilarating whirlwind. Sarah dove into preparation, poring over data, mapping strategies, and testing her hypotheses, while simultaneously blending these insights into her blog. The duality of her aspirations, the market, and her burgeoning authorial voice became more intertwined. Each point of analysis she made in their weekly meetings was a reflection of her personal growth. Yet, as the weeks passed and the volatility of the market ebbed and flowed, Sarah still grappled with an unsettling notion. How could she ensure that her voice didn't get lost amidst the complexities? In every meeting, she felt the weight of that question, the vulnerability of her truth buzzing at the back of her mind. Would her insights prove strong enough to validate her position? Or would self-doubt drown her ambitions once more? At their next meeting, Sarah entered the cafe feeling ready, not just with data, but armed with the authenticity she had finally begun wielding like a sword. As they dove deep into their analysis, she shared her own perspective not only as a budding strategist, but as a mother, as a woman pushing through fear. Taking a leap, she framed her insights not just within the context of numbers, but as a lived experience. The market is unpredictable, yes, but so are our stories.
When we allow others a see vulnerabilidades em nossas narrativas analíticas, they can connect com desses very elementos que parecem daunting. This isn't just about making gains, it's about fostering a comunidade de entendimento. Jake regarded her with a mixture of surprise and admiration. He nodded thoughtfully, absorbendo a shift in her approach. Here, in this moment, Sarah realized that she was no longer merely a waitress who stumbled into finance. She was an empowered woman harnessing her experiences to create an authentic impact. When they wrapped up the meeting, Jake leaned closer, a confident smile breaking across his face. Sarah, your insights are not just valuable, they are transformatives. You've carved a unique niche in this space. We have to present this at our upcoming meeting con sus vestors. In that instant, pride surged through her veins, suffusing her con solida confianza. She was no longer un impostor or merely una waitress. She had proven herself a competent strategist. A transição firme-lhe estabelecida por seu amor pela autenticidade e conexão. As these weeks unfolded toward that pivotal investors meeting, Sarah meticulously preparou sua narrativa, building from her experiences and Jake's insights. The stakes for an awareness simmered que this presentation não sora milestone profissional, mas uma culminação de sua jornada. Quando o dia chegou, she stood before room filled com investidores experientes, coração rachando. Mas beneath that flutter lay profunda confiança, senso de pertencimento que brilhava com claridade. As she presented, framing her insights amidst data-backed projections and personal anecdotas, she witnessed the audience's engagement shift from mere curiosidade a interesse cativante. Cada ponto she made resonated beyond numbers. They connected to the very essence de risco e resiliência que permeava sua escrita. By the end, the applause felt like a surge of recognition, uma validação de sua jornada e transformação. Later, quando Jake walked over, seu sorrindo protetor envolveu-a em calor. Você deu, Sarah. Sua voz foi impactante. Você não é só participante. Você estabeleceu seu pé neste lugar. Lágrimas apertaram seus olhos, mas não eram de dúvidas, eram de inequivocável fulfimento. She went beyond o que pensou possível, reclamando não só sua identidade, mas transformando-se em uma reconhecida força na landscape financeira. Nos dias que seguiram, feedback dos investidores afirmou seu impacto. Aclares apareceram que ressaltavam sua inafável autenticidade e analítica proeza. Sua blog viu crescimento de seguidores com quem se resonava sua jornada, ignited pelo coragem que ela abraçou ao lado de suas ambições profissionais. Uma noite, após dia duro, Sarah sentou em seu escritório em casa, refletindo sobre sua jornada. O caos dos últimos meses transformaram-se em claridade.
She reveled the knowledge that she had not only conquered a challenge set before her, but she had transformed every fear into a stepping stone. The reflection in the mirror no longer showed a waitress burdened with worry, but a confident woman who had found her voice, her path, and her purpose. And there, in that moment of serenity, she knew this was just the beginning. As she penned her latest blog, her heart brimmed with excitement, knowing that sharing her authentic journey would empower others in their struggles too. Sarah was not just one story, she was many, a voice forged in resilience and purpose, ready to inspire change. This is it. She had accomplished her transformation, a testament to hard work and self-acceptance, courage and connection. And now, as Sarah's story unfolds further, I urge you, dear audience, subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that might touch your life. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and ensure encouragement flows for more transformative tales. Comment your reactions and theories about this ending. Your voice matters. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to support the challenges faced and conquered by individuals like Sarah, because personal stories of overcoming hold the power to spark change and create a ripple effect in our communities. Don't wait even one more second to share this message.